the consequences. General Frank Barrow. Morehouse held up his hand for silence in the room. Quiet, everyone. Did Regenthal say why? He demanded. Mom, did Jesse say why he wanted Cody? Asked Nightshade into the phone. Okay. She grabbed up a felt-tipped pen from the table and wrote a number on her hand. Okay, I'll get him to call. Right now? Mom, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll have Cody call him. Yeah, I know. There's no summer school tomorrow, I heard on TV. Cody will bring me home once it's daylight out and the TV says it's safe and there's no more crazy Nazis shooting up the streets. Yes, Mom, I know. Don't worry. We'll be praying for peace too, and we won't be doing any sins of the flesh, I promise. Okay, see you soon. Praise the Lord. She hung up. Did Regenthal give any indication of what's going on? Repeated Morehouse. No, but he left a cell number and he says it's urgent that Cody call him right away, no matter what time it is, said Nightshade. She handed him the phone. Here, Cody, use mine in case he's got some kind of caller ID. He'll be expecting you to call from my number. Everybody keep it down in here, ordered Morehouse. Go ahead. Volunteer Brock. Emily held up her hand and Cody dialed the number on it. Morehouse and Nightshade both leaned over close to listen. Regenthal's voice answered, deep and hearty. Praise Jesus, he boomed. Is this Miss Pastras? So he is using caller ID, muttered Dortmunder. Hello, Brother Jesse, said Cody, going into beaver cleaver mode, modulating his voice to seem a bit younger than he was as best he could do so. It's me, Cody Brock from Sunday school. Emily's mother told her you wanted me to call you. Sure did, young man. We're worried about you and Emily down at the church, Cody, said Regenthal. You know there's been a lot of trouble going on tonight, and she wasn't sure where her daughter was or you. Yeah, well, things got kind of hairy last night, sir, said Cody. I was going to take Emily roller skating, but then the president came on, TV. We watched her in the snack bar at the roller rink and that kind of messed up the evening. Then I got a call from the hospital and they told me my dad got shot at work by some of those damned, oh sorry for cussing, Lord, I mean, by some of those blasted Nazis. A nurse patched my dad up in the emergency room, but there were all kinds of guys with guns running around, right in the ER and out on the street, and we ended up taking him over to Mr. Simpson's house because it was closer. He's gonna be all right, but I didn't want to take Emily home until it got daylight and the police were able to chase the Nazis away. I just don't know what's happening, Captain, sir. It sounded like the president is going to give the state of Washington away to the Nazis and we'll all have to start goose-stepping or something. Well, that's what I'm calling you about, said Regenthal. Cody, sounds to me like you understand that our country is now in the greatest danger it's ever been in. For some reason which surpasses rational belief, the President of the United States is apparently considering actually going into negotiations with those Nazi bastards, and I'm not going to apologize to the Lord for swearing because that's just what they are. Now, there are a lot of red-blooded Americans who just ain't gonna put up with that kind of betrayal, president or not, and I'm one of them. Give part of this fair land of liberty to those evil Satan-worshipping Nazis, them as have laid their bloody hands on the apple of God's eye? No, sir. As much as I hate to say it, it looks like we decent Christian men are going to have to take matters into our own hands. You mean take things into our own hands, Captain, sir? Asked. That's what I'd like to talk to you about, son, said Regenthal. But for reasons which will become obvious, I can't do it on the phone. You never know who's listening, and since we've been betrayed by our own president, good men and true no longer know whom we can trust. Can you come over to the church at 9 o'clock this morning? There will be some of us getting together here, and I'll fill all of you in then. Sure, Brother Jesse, said Cody. Meanwhile, Nightshade was making frantic gestures, pointing to herself and silently mouthing, me. Cody shook his head until Morehouse tapped his shoulder, pointed to Nightshade, and gave a firm and definitive nod. Brother Jesse, I think I got an idea what you may be talking about, and if I'm right, then I'm your man for sure. But can Emily come too? I know that she hates those Nazis ever since they kidnapped her and did, well, what they did to her. Whatever you've got in mind, I know she'll want to be in on it. Are you sure about that? Asked Regenthal. She's a girl, after all. way for the hosts of the children of Israel into the Promised Land when she received Joshua's spies into her house. Christ and America today as well. Emily is really strong in the spirit. I don't suppose I can argue with Scripture, said Regenthal with a chuckle. And we may need a feminine touch on some things before we're through. Do you seriously think she'd make a good undercover operative? Well, I don't know if she'd be any good as a spy, Captain, sir, said Cody judiciously. Emily's such a very shy and gentle person. But she can always bake cookies or something. Nightshade extended her middle finger and held it up in front of his face. Well, I'll talk to her when you get here, said Regenthal. We'll be there at 9, sir. Praise his name, said Regenthal, and hung up. They're up to, I guess we'll find out today, said Morehouse. I presume you want us to infiltrate up as high as we can get into this Christian militia or whatever they're planning, sir? Asked Nightshade crisply. This meeting this morning will be just one of the many tips of the iceberg. I imagine you'll find little groups like this getting together surreptitiously in fundamentalist churches all across the Northwest today. Whatever the master plan is, looks like they're putting it into action. And I doubt if that redneck fool Regenthal is the big cheese behind it all. With the peace negotiations about to begin, I'd say it's almost as important for us to find out who's pulling these people's strings from D.C., as it is for us to assess the situation on a military threat basis. Yes, you're right, said Morehouse, drumming his fingers on the kitchen counter. A very perceptive analysis, comrade. I'm glad the NVA has found employment for your talents other than baking cookies. Cody had the good grace to look sheepish. So what do we do, sir? Asked Dortmunder. Just send them into the church. I have a bad feeling about that. Pandora Clinton opened the box last night and the demons have escaped. There's no longer any telling what's going to happen out there from day to day. Why did Regenthal come looking for Cody specifically? That bothers me. This may be some kind of trap, and if these people even suspect the kids are volunteers, they'll probably kill them right on the spot. What if somebody from this Holy Roller Church recognized them out at Eastgate Mall last night? I know this has to be done, but I want these kids covered somehow. Commandant, suppose you send Nightshade and me in strapped? Asked Cody. We can tell Regenthal that we figured out what he wanted to talk to us about, that we knew we were going to be called upon to fight for God's chosen people, and so we came prepared. Give us some civilian-style pieces, like an old Magnum Police Service revolver or a deer rifle for me and maybe a snub or something like that for Nightshade, the kind of thing most people still have lying around their houses. At least that way we can try shooting our way out if it breaks bad. That's one possibility, but I'm a little more concerned with the big picture, said Morehouse. Comrade Nightshade was right. We have to look at this in the context of the upcoming conference at Longview. That's the sun our universe will be revolving around for the next few months until it ends, one way or another. This whole idea of using evangelicals as a kind of fifth column against the party and the republic smacks of long-term planning, the kind of thing some neocon think tank came up with. They love playing out scenarios like this. Someone in the power structure anticipated that at some point things would reach the negotiation stage. What would be the purpose of such a formation from their point of view? Obviously, to cause disruption and harass and hinder the new republic and its government in every conceivable way, sir, replied Dortmunder. A counter-revolutionary force. Frankly, if these fanatics decide to organize some sort of underground strike force, there is little we could do to stop them, and there won't be for some time. We're not even in partial control on the ground yet. Hell, these people established the most powerful tyranny in human history, and even after a century in power they couldn't stop us from organizing against them. Once the white man recovered his testicular follication. I think Comrade Nightshade is right. We need to find out how high this goes, and that means they're going to have to work their way up through the chain of command, from Regenthal to his handler, so forth and so on. Damn it, we don't have time for that, Joe, insisted Barrow. In a couple of weeks I'm going to have to go down there to Longview, and I'm going to have to find some way to bluff and browbeat and sweet-talk these monsters into giving us back some little portion of what's ours. I have to go in there to that table holding as strong a hand as possible. That means that their hand has to be correspondingly weaker, and I don't want them to have some kind of Christian death squad. Card as a holdout they can suddenly deploy to change the situation on the ground if things start going against them at the talks. That's one option we need to strike off their menu. We need to roll this crap up now, nip it in the bud before it even begins. I agree, said Morehouse. Back a few months ago when we were still underground, or a few months from now once we're established as a government, I would say we go ahead and take our time and do this right. Get you two on the inside with these yahoos, work your way up, and see where the drain flows into the sewer. But this is a crucial cusp time, and we can't afford to make any mistakes, nor can we afford to go in ignorance of a possible budding threat to our independence. It's possible that this evangelical insurgency thing may be the foundation, the linchpin of the United States government's whole plan for these peace talks. They finally sit down at the table with us, and then all of a sudden there's this big patriotic uprising in red, white, and blue as the great silent majority of true blue Americans of the Northwest step up for Mom and God and apple pie, and brave little Israel, and the great jumping Jesus, that kind of horse shit. No, comrades. Oh, no, 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 no. Not happening. We're going to stomp on this nonsense. Now, today. We'll send you two into that church, strapped and wired for sound if we can, and once you can get as much info as possible out of these ignorant bastards, preferably on tape, we're going to move in and smush them. The one sticky point is that this redneck moron Regenthal has to be taken alive. He has the information we want, and we'll get it from him. Frank, you're a former cop. You've worked with wired informants before, right? Yup, said Barrow. Dr. Doom Kid Joe? Asked Morehouse. Can he rig one or both of these comrades up either with a covert recorder kind of broadcast bug? Don't use the phone. Send somebody reliable out there to find him and explain what we want, so he can get what equipment he needs, then bring him here, said Morehouse. That will take a while, I'm sure. I suggest that you two comrades use the intervening time to find a dark corner and catch a couple of hours of sleep. And none of that carnal sin stuff, Dortmunder reminded them with a chortle. Get thee behind me, Satan, said Cody, shaking his finger sternly at Emily and getting another elevated middle finger from her in return. The mansion was a large home built back in the late part of the last century, intended for wealthy cyber yuppies, and it actually had servants' quarters, which had no doubt hosted a long series of illegal alien maids and gardeners and pool boys. Cody and Emily were able to find a spare bedroom with two twin beds in it, tucked off to one side on the top floor. They lay down in their clothes on the separate beds. Cody set a travel alarm clock he carried in his gear and turned out the lights. Tell me a story, demanded Emily. Once there were three bears who tore up and ate a little girl who wouldn't let them sleep, said Cody. Tell me the one about why you didn't want me to go with you into that meeting at church today, she said. Do we really need to be talking about this now? He asked. Not if you don't want to, she said with a shrug he could feel if not see in the dark. Cody sighed. Look, we both know that you can do anything a man can do in this line of work, and you do it damned well, as good as me or better, he said. No argument. And no, my macho isn't offended by you personally. It's not about you as such. It's a deeper thing, and I think it's the natural way for a man to feel. Just because women can do these violent and military things, some of them anyway, that don't require as much physical strength and endurance as others, that doesn't mean that they should be doing them. Okay, I accept the world as it is. I know we need female comrades, and we'd be stupid and probably lose the war if we didn't use all the available talent and intelligence and courage that women bring to our racial struggle. Girls like you are a necessary evil, if you'll pardon the expression, with emphasis on the necessary. Again, no argument from me. And if you feel you've got something to prove by being here, take my word for it. You've proved it to every man jack of us. I know we've got some Neanderthals in the NVA who don't want women to vote under the Republic, who want to shove you back into the kitchen and keep you barefoot and pregnant, and that's crap. Women like you have earned the right to do whatever the hell you want in our new country. For you and all your sisters and daughters, pardon the trite language. When they start handing out medals, you've earned every one of them, and I want to pin them on you myself. But God damn it, it just doesn't. He ran down. It just doesn't feel right, she concluded for him. No, it doesn't. I'm sure you've seen it on TV when some Army or National Guard unit is leaving for Iraq or Saudi or Gaza, and they show some woman in camouflage with an M16 over her shoulder kissing her children goodbye, and then handing them to her husband, who is going to stay home and take care of the kids while mommy goes off to war. And those scum-sucking liberal asshole news commentators think this is just the greatest and most wonderful scene since sliced bread. I used to see those stories on the tube and I'd wonder, what kind of so-called man could do something like that? How could he live with himself? How could he look himself in the mirror every morning knowing what a cowardly turd he was? Emily, for Christ's sake, don't think I'm dissing you in any way. I'm not, I swear. But I shouldn't be fighting with you at my side. I should be fighting for you or, well, for some woman, back in a home someplace with a family and children that I am trying to protect from these horrible tyrants. That's the way it's been down through history. And you, I mean women, you've always been a civilizing and moderating influence on men and their urge to fight one another. Kind of a break that periodically gets called into play to stop us boys from burning down the whole house with our horseplay, so to speak. That's what your role should be in any kind of sane society, stopping us guys from doing a lot of the stupid things we do, making us grow up and be responsible. But in America, a couple of generations ago, women decided they wanted in on the menfolks' rat race, and the menfolks' pointless, brutal competition, and the menfolks' politics, and the menfolks' wars, and when you did that, you stopped being a civilizing influence and became part of the problem. We ended up with power-mad bitches like Margaret Thatcher and Hillary Clinton sending the troops out to slaughter just as easily as men ever did. Look, am I making any sense at all, or am I just really pissing you off? Because if we're going to go into that den of fools this morning and break bad on them, I don't need you pissed off at me. She laughed. No, not at all. All you're telling me is that you've got healthy racial instincts, which I knew already. Look, Cody, you're spot on. It doesn't feel right to me either because it isn't right. It's completely against nature for me to be doing what I'm doing, and I despise these Jewish feminists like Gloria Steinem and Germaine Greer and Shulamith Firestone and Andrea Dworkin and the whole plug-ugly nickel-nosed crew. They started all this nutty man-hating crap, this idea that men are enemies and competitors, so that now 2 generations later I have to live like this. I should be wearing dresses every day, and really baking cookies for a decent and honorable man who loves me and protects me and supports me, so I can get on with my own job in life, of raising as many children as I can bear, beg, borrow, or steal. I need a man to be the head of the family while I am the heart. That's what every female chromosome in my body demands that I do, but these damned Jews and the lunatic world of toxic waste they've made won't let me do it. In the world that they've forced me to live in, I have to spend every waking hour getting one up on every man in sight, or else I'm a failure and a victim in society's eyes. I'll show them victim. There are women who haven't been so badly damaged by feminism that they've lost every genuinely feminine instinct. They know that something has gone badly wrong in our lives. Most of us have some little corner in the back of our minds where we understand what we've lost. Kind of a genetic memory, if you like. It hurts like hell, and we want it back. And thank you for not wanting me to go in with you today, male chauvinist that you are. Like all girls, I'm a sucker for a romantic gesture. I think it's really sweet. I'm a really sweet guy when I'm not shooting people, Cody assured her, softly in the darkness. So I've noticed. Look, there's something else, and I suppose I might as well ask. Never mind my mind all these carnal sin jokes, are we ever going to get it on? I don't mean now. We have to go back on the job in. Is it ever going to happen? If you can tell me one way or the other, I'd like to know where I stand, for future reference, and I'm on the pill. Emily, I just don't know, he said with another sigh. I know that's not what you want to hear, but I just can't tell you now. Kelly? She asked. No, not Kelly, he assured her. Apparently I was pretty damned obvious, eh? As an elephant in church, yeah, she agreed. That was just me taking a last gasping shot at having some kind of adolescence, which is another thing those It Takes a Village snakes took from me. I think that's why I talked Bells into letting me go back to high school for a year. I wanted one last taste of what might have been. Kelly and me were never possible. We talked a little about it at her house tonight, and we both understand that. That hadn't been exactly the gist of the conversation earlier that evening, in the shipman den by the light of the flickering tube, but, as young as he was, Cody understood that there were times, especially where women were concerned, where honesty is not always the best policy. Besides, it was true. There had never been any realistic chance for him and Kelly, so he wasn't actually lying to Emily. "But suppose I did get involved with you?" he went on, "and then tomorrow or the next day or next month or next year, we get in another firefight with the feds and you end up dying in my arms or me in yours. Although I doubt it would be that dramatic, just horrible. You see what I mean, Em? I shouldn't even be having this discussion with a fellow soldier. None of this should even be a consideration. It simply adds to the confusion of an already stressful and confused situation. You shouldn't be here. But having said that, I'm glad you are. And I know now that the one thing that I remember my father telling me about women is true. They always want to have deep and heavy analytical talks about the relationship at 4 o'clock in the morning, when you have to work next day and you're trying to sleep. This was the best I could do on short notice, said Dr. Doom a few hours later, as he handed Nightshade her bugged Bible. He was a thin, blond young man with an intense and ascetic look, but not the thick glasses usually associated with science nerds. I put this together from some of the bits and pieces I got from the Radio Shack. The feds have all kinds of homing devices and tiny little fiber optic surveillance mics and cameras the size of a pinhead that you can wear in your hair or your lapel or disguise as a dozen different things, and which will broadcast for a 2-mile radius. Third section has a little bit of that kind of exotic stuff that they've used on our own covert ops. But the only person I know who would have access to it or know how to use it would be Dr. Joe Cord, and he's off on some kind of special mission at the moment. So this will have to do. Basically, I pulled out the Videophone micro-circuit board from a cell phone and slipped it into the spine this Bible. It's about the size of a small person's thumbnail, so it fits fairly snug. I glued it in with super glue so it won't fall out at an embarrassing moment. This particular model of chip has its own power cell, so it will work on its own without the rest of the phone. There's no lens, since Commandant Dortmunder told me all you guys wanted for this morning was audio. It's a small chip, and it nestles very snugly in the spine, and it's black. So unless someone takes your book in hand and feels a bump in the spine, or examines it closely, no one should see it. But it's a pretty clumsy job, and anyone who actually handles the book may notice when they try to open it that the spine is a bit stiff, and get curious. So be careful and try not to let anyone else handle it. Before I pulled out the chip, I dialed the number of a laptop with telephony that the Commandant gave me, and so you've got a wireless connection to that device that will transmit through the local cell sites. Let's just hope they don't space out on us, or we don't have a sunspot surge. Try to hold the top of the Bible in the direction of whoever is speaking, almost like a mic. But don't make it too obvious. Your conversation will be recorded as an MP3 file on this laptop, so we'll have a permanent record of whatever goes down. Give me those highlighters, requested Emily, pointing to a set of the felt-tipped pens on the table which the officers had been using to mark maps. She hadn't come to the safe house dressed for church on the previous afternoon, so she was now wearing a hastily assembled Christian-like female costume, which included the skirt and the shoes. From her NVA uniform, which she has been trying on only the evening before, and she'd had to borrow a cross on a chain from one of the Christian volunteers at the headquarters. Emily took the Bible and began going through it quickly, highlighting various passages in color. In a fundy church, everybody has their own Bible, and if I show up with a new one that's unmarked, someone might notice. Ever since these things were invented, a really devout Christian's Bible always has a psychedelic look. As to the bug, I presume we're going to have other things going on to distract everybody's attention. Is this thing broadcasting now? Yes, it's on, said Dortmunder. General Barrow, myself and Eddie and several other volunteers will be in our vehicles, circling the neighborhood of the church. Bobby Bells wanted to do it when he heard what was going down, but he's got his hands full running our new public recruiting and broadcasting station at the Eastgate Mall. He thinks a lot of you two, apparently. I will be monitoring you on this laptop that the doc here has programmed to receive your audio feed. I won't be able to see anything of what's going on, but I will have the laptop, and I will be able to hear you. and whatever goes on at this unusual prayer meeting. What did you decide about sending us in strapped? Asked Cody. That's going to be up to you two, since you know the ground and the people. But I would be more comfortable if you went in with some kind of armament, even if it's concealed, said Dortmunder. This setup still makes my antennae quiver. What do you think? Cody asked Nightshade. You think they'll be that security conscious? Asked Dortmunder anxiously. My guess is not, said Cody. I think this is just going to be a preliminary meeting for Regenthal to call down the spirit and see who's with him on this little vigilante venture. I don't think they're going to try to go out and attack anyone. Who would they attack? We're not out in the open yet, except at a few places like Eastgate. He'll be praising the Lord but not passing the ammunition, at least not today. The thing is, we have to stay in character, said Nightshade firmly. They think we're a couple of brain-dead high school kids who are into Jesus and each other. Would a couple of kids like that show up at a secret meeting to do the Lord's work carrying guns when we have never before shown any indication of even knowing what a peace looks like? I'm sure we could come up with some kind of excuse, but it would be out of character. Yeah, I'd be more comfortable myself with a holdout in my purse or in an ankle holster for Cody, but suppose we're searched. Maybe we could explain them away, but again, it would be a variation in pattern, and it would make them curious. I'm not even going to be carrying my blade, because good Christian girls don't go around tooled up in that manner. I'm none too happy about going in with this bugged Bible even. Suppose they run a metal detector over us? It shouldn't pick anything up, replied Dr. Doom cheerfully. Once I remove the lens and the other components, the chip is largely plastic, and the microcircuits are mostly silicate compound, even the conductive elements. Latest thing from China. We've really let the gooks get ahead of us in technology. Again, do you want to bet their lives on it? Repeated Dortmunder, looking at Doom. What exactly is the plan anyway? Asked Cody. What are you comrades on the outside going to do? Just listen in? Red Morehouse sighed. No, we're going to nip this in the bud, like I said earlier, but we need to be a little circumspect about it, and we need you two in there first to scope out the sitch. Because this event is taking place in a church, we don't want just to raid the place and take everybody into custody, with or without gunfire. I cannot overemphasize how utterly vital it is that the NVA and hence the Northwest Republic not be perceived as being anti-Christian in any way, especially at this crucial phase of events. We don't want to bust in there and find it's nothing but a prayer meeting calling down the great jumping Jesus to smite all us Nazi sinners, so forth and so on. The enemy media would be all over something like that, and they'd squeeze every ounce of propaganda value out of it. We have to get some kind of proof that something untoward is going on. This Regenthal character has to actually say something in our hearing that indicates that they're planning some kind of unchristian paramilitary or terrorist attack against the Republic. Terrorist attack. Damn, that sounds odd for someone on our side to be saying. Once we hear that, we're going to bust in the doors and grab them, especially Regenthal. We'll get what we need from him. Be interesting to see how long he lasts in his own ball-busting chair we captured in Renton. But we need you to provide us with the necessary final ingredient of proof. And also we need you wired so you can give us some kind of information about what the setup is inside the building, how many of them there are, what weapons, if any, whether or not Regenthal has sentries posted, etc. He wouldn't be much of an army officer if he didn't. We do not want to end up staging a massacre on church grounds that the enemy propaganda can turn against us. I'm not comfortable in subordinating your lives to considerations of public relations, but sometimes that's how it plays out. Nightshade is right, said Cody with a sigh. This is a role we are playing, and we have to stay in character. Take the bug, but no guns. I will be commanding your backup crew myself, said Barrow. Don't worry, we used to do this kind of thing all the time when I was a cop. We'll be following you out there, and owing to the potentially national-level sensitivity of this assignment, the AC has decided there will be a special squad of reinforcements assigned to this case to make sure we bag them fast and alive. You'll get to meet your first SS men, Cody. They're going to be an hour or so getting there. But once they're in place around the church and we have the information we need, we're busting in and we're grabbing Brother Jesse's sanctified OD green ass And that preacher as well, plus anyone else who's there gets dragged into the net. I don't know what we'll do with them exactly, but we not only need to find out what they know, we need to let the rest of the evangelical community know that the jig is up, we're on to them, and we're not going to tolerate any counter-revolutionary shenanigans. Everyone in the new republic is free to worship as they please. They are not free to commit treason and then hide behind religion to escape the consequences. This morning, you guys will have to play along with whatever they say until we move, and be ready to take cover whatever you need to do when it goes down. Don't worry, we won't leave you comrades dangling in the wind for too long. Now, like I said, we'll be listening on Dr. Doom's laptop. If at any time you feel threatened, and you think you need immediate extraction, your SOS is that old rugged cross. Kind of an inside joke there. That's the gospel song they used to play at Clan Cross lightings. Think you can work that into a conversation? He concluded with a chuckle. If necessary, I could work the lyrics to a nigger rap song into the conversation, said Cody. Nightshade and Cody drove to the Assembly of God together in the old Nissan, followed by 2 carloads of armed NVA volunteers. They pulled over at a corner 2 blocks down from the church building. They ran quick test on the audio from the bugged Bible, and it worked. Okay, scope the place carefully before you go in, Barrow told them. Remember the distress code, rugged cross. Good luck. The 2 of them drove into the church's gravel parking lot, which had about 24 cars and trucks and Christian bumper sticker-bearing SUVs in it, unusual for that time of the morning on a weekday. I'm assuming that you can hear us okay, comrades, said Nightshade into her Bible. There's Regenthal and Sheldon at the door of the fellowship hall. She waved at them. They're wearing civilian clothes. So far no visible weapons other than Regenthal's usual sidearm, or any danger signs. We're going in. They got out of the car and walked across the parking lot, Emily with the Bible under her arm. Cody was carrying a battered and annotated paperback copy of Hal Lindsey's The Late Great Planet Earth, which was held in almost as much reverence as the Bible itself in evangelical circles. "How's your father doing, Cody?" asked Pastor Leonard as they came up to the door of the fellowship hall. "Brother Jesse told me he was hurt by the Antichrist last night. He's laid up and it will be a while before he can go back to work, but he'll make it. Praise God," Cody told them. "Praise him. Where did he get shot?" asked Regenthal. "In his left hand," said Cody. "No, I mean where did it happen?" pressed Regenthal. "He was in Eastgate Mall in the drug hut getting some things, and there were some federal anti-terrorist cops there who were doing some kind of radio telethon about the president's speech. He stopped to listen. And before he knew it, the Nazis came out of nowhere and started firing into the crowd," said Cody, shaking his head as if in disbelief. "He got hit in a crossfire. I didn't catch all the details, but I understand it was a bloody mess. A good Samaritan got Dad out of there and got him to the hospital." Cody hoped they any further details, since quick casual lying wasn't his forte, but they seemed satisfied. "We will add him to our prayer list for the sick," said Sheldon. "Thank you, Pastor," said Cody. "Dad hasn't found the Lord yet, but I'm sure he'll appreciate the gesture. Well, my young brother in Christ, are you ready to help us get the dirty Nazi bastards? Who did it?" asked Regenthal, laying a serious hand on Cody's shoulder. "Yes, sir," replied Cody immediately. Regenthal responded by giving him a crushing bear hug. "And how about you, Emily?" he asked, turning to the girl. "You know that this might turn out to be a very dangerous witness for Christ indeed." She rolled up her arm and showed one of the scars from her self-inflicted cigar burns. "What do you think, Captain, sir?" she replied. "Good girl." "May Jesus bless and keep you both," boomed Regenthal, giving Emily a slightly less crushing and more dignified embrace. "Come inside, kids. We have a lot to talk about." "How did that hug feel to you?" whispered Cody as they entered. "He was feeling me up, but not like Sheldon would have done," she returned sotto voce. "He was feeling for a wire." "Yeah, me too," said Cody. "He's not as dumb as he looks." "Nobody could be as dumb as he looks," whispered back Nightshade. They went into the long and spacious fellowship hall, where the church held all their bake sales, dinners, meetings, and some of their revivals. It was a high-ceilinged building lit by bright fluorescent lights, and with a well-buffed linoleum floor. There were large murals and paintings of biblical scenes along the walls, and a large crucifix hung over a small stage or platform at one end of the hall, with a speaker's podium in the center. There were long rows of folding chairs facing the stage. The place could comfortably seat at least 300 people. A group of about 30 other men, mostly middle-aged, from the church's congregation were waiting for them, clustered in the front row. Cody knew from careful listening during his several weeks of attendance that almost all of them had some kind of military experience in Iraq or Saudi Arabia or other parts of the American oil empire. Emily was the only woman present. Another man whom Cody had never seen before, who had a distinctly military haircut and bearing, was sitting in a chair beside the door and seemed to be acting as doorman, and Cody noticed he had what looked like a 9mm in a holster on his belt. At the rear door to the hall sat yet another newcomer, similarly armed. Cody immediately noticed some suspiciously long, unmarked OD green cases that were stacked at the side of the stage, and he nudged Emily and nodded in their direction. Gee, Captain Sir, what's in those long boxes?" yapped Cody for the benefit of the bug in the Bible. Regenthal grinned and strode over to the stack of boxes. "How are you on the Psalms, Cody?" he asked. Regenthal raised his voice so all could hear. "Our young brother here has asked me what is in these boxes which I've brought from Fort Lewis, and I recommended he look in the Psalms, so say I to you all, my brothers and sister. It's true that these receptacles contain something that you may find unusual in a house of God, but these end times are strange, and ye shall see many wonders, which we must not fear. You know that the Bible is replete with men who were both strong in war and strong in the Holy Spirit. In Psalm number 2 we find, Why do the heathen rage, and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together, against the Lord, and against his anointed, saying, Let us break their bands asunder, and cast away their cords from us. My friends, last night I was deeply saddened to learn that the President of the United States became one of those princes and powers of the earth who imagines the vain thing. This weak woman of little faith has set herself up against the Lord and the Lord's chosen, the Jewish people who are the apple of his eye, and she has traduced the unfolding of God's revelation in the holy land of Israel that is the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. She goes now to treat with the servants of damnation, and she's doing it right here in this green and pleasant land, where by right the peace of America and the grace of God should reign. Last night was a terrible night for us all, a terrible night for America and for those who believe in his promise of redemption in Zion. But when we seek further in the Psalms we find, in verses 8 and 9, I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron, thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Regenthal threw back the top of one of the crates and lifted out a new, military-issue M16, which he held aloft. Behold the rod of iron with which we shall fight the battle of the Lord. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings, be instructed, ye judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Praise Jesus, several of the men shouted aloud. To hell with Hitler, another one yelled. No one seemed overly surprised at Captain Regenthal flourishing the weapon aloft in a church. Cody understood that Regenthal had been working on them and psychologically prepping them for some time. Where'd you get those guns, Captain Sir? He asked as Emily clutched her Bible high in both hands, apparently in religious fervor, but in actuality to make sure the hidden transmitter picked it all up. Golly, you got 6 boxes. Why, that must be 60 M's 16 seconds. But I only see about 30 of us here, including me and Emmy, he said, hugging Emily around her shoulder and pulling her and the Bible close so he could speak over it. He hoped that Regenthal couldn't catch on to what he was doing, which was carefully describing to the listening volunteers what was going on in the hall. There will be more, Regenthal told him confidently. The Lord God has friends in all kinds of places, Cody, including the United States military. Let's just say that when his hosts arise to break asunder the foes of his chosen, we won't be lacking for rods of iron to do it with. These weapons will never be missed from any arms room, and they're untraceable. The Lord does indeed provide. Now, brothers, if we might all have a seat, I'd like to get serious for a bit." They all trooped to the folding chairs and sat down while Regenthal ascended the podium. "My friends and brothers in Christ," began Regenthal solemnly, "there are some of you who already know why we are gathered here today in the shadow of apostasy and despair. But some of you other folks, including our younger comrades, are new to our little group, and so an explanation is required. I don't have to tell you what has been happening in this part of our beloved nation for the past 5 years. Satan has been unleashed upon the earth in an orgy of murder and racial hatred and terrorism, and revilement of God's chosen, as the sacred scriptures predicted would happen in the end times, when the great enemy shall be given dominion over the earth for a period so that the Lord may come to know his own, and the great tribulation begin, as was written." The Pacific Northwest has become yet another of the many battlegrounds upon which America must fight the war on terror, which, as we all know, is really the biblical war against the Antichrist, who has manifested himself among men as Gog and Magog, in the equally devilish twin forms of Islam and Nazi fascism. These are but two heads upon the great beast upon whose back rideth the whore of Babylon. "What the hell is Nazi fascism?" whispered Cody to Nightshade. The two are completely different worldviews. "Doesn't this asshole have a clue what the hell he's talking about?" "Shut up," she whispered back urgently. "Smile, damn it. You're in church, Jesus loves you, and I'm gonna kick you in the balls if you don't act like it." Both of their faces assumed the slack-jawed, slightly eager lobotomy grin, which was customary for evangelical services. Regenthal went on with his rant. "Now our country's crisis has come to a head. The Bible also tells that in the end times there shall be false prophets, and that those who are saved in his only Son must face betrayal and rejection from their loved ones, from their leaders, and from all the world," he told them. This we know already. But just as this development was predicted in prophecy, I have to tell all of you that it has not been unforeseen in the halls of power in Washington, D.C. either. I will be honest with you folks. My presence in this congregation is not an accident, and the presence of military and law enforcement men of faith in certain other congregations today, all around the Pacific Northwest, is no accident either. All across Washington and Oregon and Idaho, and beneath the big sky of Montana, small meetings such as this between determined people of faith are taking place this morning. We knew that this day would come. It was known some time ago that there are certain weak and ill-intentioned elements in the United States government who have been pressing for negotiations with these Nazi devils, negotiations that would violate the territorial integrity of the United States of America, and which would violate every single principle on which this country was founded and every basis of our faith and our American way of life. Unfortunately, these treasonous elements appear to have prevailed, for at least the short run. The President's shameful speech of yesterday evening comes as no surprise to some of us, because we are already involved in the preparations which have been made to defeat this evil purpose on many fronts. Today we are here to open up one such line of resistance to the powers of darkness and hatred that seek to engulf us. I am going to have to ask you all to take on a significant degree of personal risk for the greater glory of Christ and God's chosen people. And some of us may assume the crown of martyrdom, but I want you to know that we are not alone. There are still powerful forces in our nation's capital that stand for truth, justice, and the American way. "Can they leap tall buildings at a single bound?" whispered Cody. Emily kicked him in the ankle. Regenthal was warming to his task. Throughout this mighty nation of ours, there are those who will be behind us all the way, and who will give us all the support we need in our battle against evil. These rifles and the ammunition behind me are just one small sample of the kind of support we will receive as we gird our loins and go forth to fight the battle of the Lord. Strong in his faith and courage, we intend to make sure that the Pacific Northwest remains a part of the United States of America, as it always has been, and that these evil people who have shed the blood of the anointed are punished for their wickedness. "We gonna whoop some Nazi ass," cried one of the audience. "We gon' slice 'em and dice 'em," agreed Regenthal. "We will give 'em a dose of their own medicine. In essence, brothers, we are going to do to them what they have been doing to the United States over the past 5 years. Despite the weakness of our president and those around her, we are going to wage guerrilla partisan warfare against this so-called Northwest Republic and make it impossible for the fascists to establish any kind of stable society or all-white racist abomination of a government here. Whatever ticky-tacky regime these Nazi bastards set up, we will knock it down and prevent it from functioning. President Clinton will not be able to negotiate away our statehood and our American citizenship because we will create such chaos and such upheaval that the United States will be forced to step back in, reassert its rightful authority, and restore order. They can't negotiate with a gang that can't control its own turf and can't deliver on any agreement. Once the Nazis have been forced out from under their rocks and out into the open, where we can see them and we have visible targets, then they can be destroyed. The men were all staring at Regenthal dumbly, eyes glazed and lips grinning absent-mindedly. Cody raised his hand. Captain Sir, I think I understand what you're saying. You know I'm with you. I'm going into the army anyway in September to fight against the Arabs who hate us because we're free and they're trying to destroy our Bible, and I'm sure ready to fight against the Nazis here in our own country as well. But what can we do if the President of the United States is against us? I mean, who in the government would be on our side and willing to stand up to the President and defy her if she says she wants to talk to the NVA? Yeah, how can we go against the President? Asked one of the other men in the group. And how can you? You're in the army and she's the commander-in-chief. Smiled unctuously. Boys, let's be honest. A lot of times in politics, things ain't exactly what they seem. The President, well, a sweet lady personally, but, you know, in real life she doesn't exactly run things in this country. Bet this negotiate with Nazis business comes from her mama, speculated another one of the men. I always figured Hillary for the real whore of Babylon. Well, yes and no, said Regenthal. Okay, this gets into some really complex politics. Yes, Hillary does still call a lot of the shots, and she is working some kind of plan to get back into the White House, even though she's already had her 2 terms as specified by the Constitution. But it's not that simple. Like that vision seen by the prophet Ezekiel, there's wheels within wheels. The fact is that there's a faction or a party within the United States government that wants to surrender and give up the Northwest over simple dollars and cents, but there are others who want to do it for what is biblically a pretty good and sound reason, if that's possible. I can't tell you everything, because it's classified, but a lot of it has to do with Israel, and of course anything to do with Israel has to do with the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. And then there's another faction within the federal government who are dead set against any negotiations of any kind with the Nazis, for any reason, and the problem is that they're all good Americans too. As you can imagine, a lot of this group that believes in no surrender are Jewish people, so you can bet they love Israel. They just understand that we can't save Israel by carving up America. Ain't nobody in the government who really loves these evil Nazis or wants to negotiate with them. It's just that some think it has to be done for Israel's sake. I'm all for Israel, as any Christian man has to be, because Israel is the key to salvation. When in doubt, we need to listen to what the Jewish people tell us. I thought the saving grace of Jesus Christ was the key to salvation, questioned one of the men, his brow furrowed. Well now, you can't follow Christ's teachings without honoring and exalting the state of Israel, now can you? Explained Regenthal patiently. Haven't you seen Pastor Sheldon's videotapes and read The Late Great Planet Earth? But me and my teammates on this mission don't believe we should be throwing out the baby with the bathwater. We don't believe that we can't find a way to serve Israel without giving up part of the United States. Several of the men started speaking at once, and Nightshade took the opportunity to whisper under the cover of their voices, "That's it." She held the Bible up to her face to try and conceal her moving lips. That's the secret reason the America government has cracked, and they're talking to the NVA. Israel is in trouble. Must be really big trouble, added Cody. And we will find that way, Brother Jesse, said Pastor Leonard Sheldon, stepping firmly up to the podium. All we need to know is that the Lord has called and we must answer. Gentlemen, you all know me. I have served as your pastor for many years. I have known about the true nature of Brother Jesse's mission within this tabernacle for some time, and I am proud and honored to be part of it. It is time for us to return to the good old days, brothers. Surely many of you recall how it was only a few short years ago, when we could share our worship in this church with people of many skin colors and national origins. You remember the wonderful and spirit-filled members of our congregation from Korea and the Philippines and Nigeria, who would sometimes fill our gospel hall to the point where the church was full to bursting. How long has it been since any of you have seen a full church? Wondered Cody below his breath. Nightshade kicked him. You will also remember the overseas missions and the programs that our denomination and our church supported throughout the Third World. Before the trouble started and all of our friends of color were so badly terrorized and frightened away, Sheldon went on. Especially those wonderful Save a Child missions, where your contributions helped to bring thousands of beautiful little black and brown babies here to America. Those days will come again, my brothers. Sheldon raised his arms in benediction. Yea, shall they come again? We, the Lord's anointed, will arise in defense of America and of holy Israel, and we will be joined by our brethren from all of the evangelical churches of the Northwest. Again, let me speak from the Psalms, offer the sacrifices of righteousness, and put your trust in the Lord. Then the bugged Bible beeped. There was a sudden silence. The Bible beeped again. What the hell is that? Asked Sheldon, startled into momentarily forgetting himself. But Cody's eyes were on Regenthal, who was standing next to the pastor on the stage. He was convinced that the army captain suspected something about himself and Emily, or was at least on his guard about them. And when he saw Brother Jesse's hand go for his gun, Cody didn't hesitate. With a smooth motion, he was up on the platform in a single leap, the folding chair in his hands, bellowing, "Behold the old rugged cross!" which was apropos of nothing and sounded ridiculous, but was the only thing he could think of to say that would let the NVA backup team know they were in trouble. He swung the chair at Regenthal and managed to knock the 9mm aside before it fired, then swung again. Regenthal was fast. He grabbed the chair out of Cody's hand and hurled it aside. The fight was looking more and more like a pro wrestling ham-it-up. He was 2 inches taller and a good 40 pounds heavier than Cody, all of it muscle. He still had the pistol in his hand, and Cody knew he had one chance consisting of a fraction of a second, which he took without hesitation. He hurtled himself forward and headbutted Regenthal right in the groin with such force that they both went flying off the stage and onto the hard lino floor, Cody coming down on top of Brother Jesse, whose massive frame somewhat cushioned his fall. Cody knew better than to try and grab for the pistol and wrestle for it. The American was stronger than he was, and he would lose any such contest. Instead, he leaped up, and as Regenthal himself rolled up to his feet, Cody came down onto his back from the rear and gripped him in the wrestling hold known as the full Nelson, arms around his opponent's chest and hands locked behind his neck, pressing forward on the spinal vertebrae. The hold allowed Cody to exercise a little bit of control as the two of them slipped and skittered over the highly polished floor. He was able to bash Regenthal's head squarely into a concrete support pillar, which made him bellow with rage and fire off a wild shot from the pistol. Then Cody felt a series of blows on his own head as the soldier who had been guarding the rear door attacked him from behind, beating him brutally with the barrel of his automatic. Cody hung on grimly and tried to pull the struggling captain around and use him as a shield. As the three of them whirled around the floor, knocking the folding chairs aside, Cody saw that several of the men were trying to subdue Nightshade without much success, as she seemed to have her teeth firmly together in the ear of one of her fellow congregants, who was screaming hysterically. There were spatters of blood flying onto the floor. "That's Sir Walter Scott, you idiot," mumbled Cody through his aching jaw. Regenthal lashed the barrel of the gun across Cody's face. "Now, son, do you really want to appear before your maker with silly mockery on your lips?" he asked gently. Sheldon was back up on his feet now, and he was knocking Emily's head back and forth again and again with his right hand, while trying to stop the blood from his nose with a handkerchief held in his left. As he beat her, he ranted and raved in a scattered pastiche of mismatched verses from Genesis. "And the Lord said unto the woman, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow, because thou hast done this. Thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life." Suddenly there was a crash and a shout, and a single shot rang out from the doorway of the fellowship hall, followed by a man's voice as strong and as southern as a rebel yell. "NVA, you gone quote the word, quote it right, you hog-jawed doo-doo bird," roared the newcomer. "How's this? And all the churches shall know that I am he who searcheth the reins and hearts, and I shall give unto every one of you according to your works. Now every damned one of you blaspheming sons of bitches get down on your knees and get your hands in the air." There were some more shots and a short burst of automatic weapons fire, and Regenthal looked up from where he crouched over Cody, distracted just long enough for Cody to grab the 9mm with his right hand and shove the muzzle away, and with his left fist clenched hook and extended middle knuckle up into Regenthal's left eyeball. Brother Jesse screamed in sudden agony, and Cody brought his knees up to try and knock him over, twisting the pistol away with his right hand, mindful of how Farmer Brown had been shot in similar circumstances the night before. There was another brief tussle between them, then a shadow fell over the two of them, and something slammed into Regenthal and sent him flying into the air. It was a boot, and Cody looked up and saw a lean man in late middle age wearing a billed green cap with an eagle and swastika emblem on it and a tiger-striped camouflaged fatigue shirt, rolled up to the biceps and displaying the prison tattooed cross on one forearm and Confederate flag on the other. He was leveling a Heckler & Koch submachine gun at Regenthal. "Take him alive!" he shouted to someone Cody couldn't see. The man reached down and pulled Cody to his feet with a strong arm. The black tabs on his collar read NDF on the right, and on the left were two matching Germanic runes, SS. It had been a swift and brutally efficient operation, which would have done Otto Skorzeny proud. Two more SS men with AK-74 seconds were now standing over Regenthal, who lay on the floor. One of them had a boot on his gun hand and was leaning on it while Regenthal shrieked. Nearby lay the dead body of the soldier who had been on guard at the rear of the fellowship hall, slumped against the side of the speaker's platform, staring into space, his gun lying by his side. Cody looked across the hall and saw the second sentry lying still on the floor, a pool of blood beneath his head. The NVA troops had cleared a space and had all of the would-be vigilantes lying flat on the floor, their hands behind their back. In addition to the volunteers from Cody's own brigade, there were a dozen SS men in the fellowship hall, every one of whom seemed to be of gigantic stature and bearded, and many of whom had arms covered with tattoos. They all wore the camouflage jacket and the heavy engineer's boots, and most had the alpine ski caps, but some were still wearing jeans, and there were other sartorial discrepancies. Apparently there hadn't been a complete uniform issue yet, even among the party's elite corps. Cody saw the eagle and swastika patches over each right shirt pocket, and he was thrilled to the very core of his being. "At last," he thought joyously to himself, "we are back, Jew boys." General Frank Barrow strode over to him. "Are you all right, Volunteer Brock?" he asked urgently. "I'm fine, sir," he said, although his head hurt terribly and his ears were ringing. "To me," said Barrow. "They split the back of your head. We have a medic with us." "Smith?" shouted the SS officer. The SS corpsman came forward with a canvas bag on a strap that bore a red cross. "Check out Nightshade first," said Cody. "That bastard preacher beat her." Barrow looked over to where Pastor Sheldon had been forced down onto his knees on the floor, his hands cuffed behind his back and his broken nose bleeding. Nightshade was behind him, cursing him and kicking him repeatedly in the seat of his pants. "I think she's okay. Is this one Regenthal?" "Yes, sir," replied Cody. "Sir, were you receiving our transmission? Did you hear what he was saying about there being two factions in the U.S. government and this whole thing being an argument over something to do with Israel?" "Yes, I heard," said Barrow. "He's all yours, Colonel Wingfield." Standing by Carter Wingfield was a volunteer in civilian clothes that Cody had never seen before, a lean and mean-looking sandy-haired young man in jeans and a brown work shirt and a denim jacket and an incongruous tweed pork pie cap on his head. He was holding a revolver of beautiful, deadly, and archaic lines. As the SS medic sat Cody down in a chair and started swabbing his head with alcohol pads, to distract himself from the pain he asked, "What's that you're packing there, comrade?" British Webley Mark 6, replied the young man proudly. Caliber, guaranteed to knock down a charging Zulu at 50 yards. This piece is World War I officer's issue, 100 years old, and it's still in as good a firing condition as the day it went into battle at the Somme. It was a present from Carter, after a good tickle we had down in Dundee a few years ago. Goes well with the hat, huh? I call this my Michael Collins outfit. Regenthal had by now been handcuffed and dragged to one of the chairs, and he stared around him wildeed. The SS officer stepped up to him and looked him up and down contemptuously. Bessemer City, Alabama, muttered Regenthal. True, snarled Regenthal. I am saved, and you are in the devil's darkness. Without a word, the young man raised the Webley and fired a single shot into Regenthal's right kneecap. He screamed like an animal. It seemed to Cody that he heard the bone snap. For the love of God, why did you shoot me? Regenthal howled. Because I don't like you, replied the volunteer. Shane just got out of Auburn a little while ago, where he spent some time enjoying your Zionist hospitality, explained Wingfield coldly. He's a little crabby, although truth to tell, I don't like you very much either. You're a ridge-running bush ape with nothing but pork fat between your ears. You're a disgrace to the South. You personify everything people find stupid and arrogant and ignorant in us. And you don't know your scripture's worth a damn, or you would know that Christ said, "Think not that I am come to bring peace upon the earth. I came not to bring peace but a sword." And you know those Jews you love so much? In John 8:44, Jesus said of them, "Ye are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye will do." I kind of doubt he would have spoken thus about any group of people his daddy had chosen for his own. It was Caiaphas and the Jews in the Sanhedrin who demanded Christ's death, even after Pontius Pilate said, "I find no evil in this man," and it was the Jews in the Jerusalem mob who cried, "Give us Barabbas," and it was Ahasuerus the Jew who struck Christ and spat on him and reviled him as he walked to Calvary bearing his cross, thereby bringing the curse of God upon all of his tribe and condemning them to wander the earth in shame and revulsion forever. I am really getting tired of bird-brained morons like you and that half-assed preacher over there defiling the Christian faith and teaching these Jew lies in place of the genuine word. Theologically speaking, you don't know shit from Shinola. You're just pigs slopping at the trough of the Jews. For God's sake, I need a doctor for my leg," screamed Regenthal wildly. "What you need is about 9 feet of good strong rope. But before you settle up your bill, you and me are going off somewhere, and we're going to have a quiet word of prayer about some things you've been doing which you hadn't oughta," said Wingfield. "And Shane will come too. We found a chair of yours down in Renton he wants you to sit down in for a spell. But right now, you're going to give me and the General here a name. I want to know who is behind this evangelical death squad idea you were babbling about in here just now. And I don't want to hear any bourgeois about factions in government. Who sent you here? Who is behind this?" "Regenthal, Jesse C., Captain, United States Army, 27013500987, moaned the man in the chair. "Take the other knee, Shane." The young man cocked back the hammer on the Webley. "Weintraub, it was Howard Weintraub," howled Regenthal in terror. "The Secretary of Homeland Security and slated to be one of the lead federal negotiators at the Longview conference," said Barrow. "Yeah, that sounds about right. I wonder if Walter Stanhope knows his partner at the table is doing everything he can to undercut his position. I'm sure you can find the time to inform him of the fact once you get down there, General," laughed Wingfield. He gestured to his 2 men. "Get his ass out of here. We're going to our new house in Renton. Wrap a towel around that leg or something so he doesn't bleed to death." They dragged the blubbering Regenthal away. "That preacher too," Wingfield called out. "I think he needs some dental work. Hold the rest of these turkeys aside. I'll talk to them myself and try and sort the fools from the rogues." The medic was shaving away most of the blood-soaked hair on the back of Cody's head with a disposable razor. "A few stitches, but it's not as bad as it looks, Troop," he told Cody cheerfully. "Most of the blows seem to have been glancing ones, more on your neck and the lower part of the skull. Nothing seems to be fractured from what I can feel. I guess you were moving around while you were being hit, right? Scalp wounds bleed like stuck pigs, but as long as there's no concussion, you should be okay. You don't feel sleepy or about to pass out, do you? No, replied Cody. Just like somebody peeled my head like an onion. You'll need a few stitches, but you'll live. Nightshade came over to Cody and laid her hand on his shoulder. Miss, you need to stay with him for a while. If he shows any signs of grogginess, staggering, anything like that, you get him to a proper doctor and hospital ASAP. Cody's personal physician lives over on Mercer Island, she said. I'm sure he'd relish another house call. Medic asked her. Looks like you went a few rounds yourself. My spiritual advisor knocked one of my teeth out, but I'll make it, she said with a shrug. Bullshit. You're hurt. Sit down. As soon as I finish sewing him up, I want to look at you, said Comrade Smith. Is that an ice machine over there in the corner? Outstanding. Hey, Chris, could you find a bowl or a bucket or something and bring me some of that ice? What the hell made that chip in the Bible start beeping, sir? Emily asked Barrow. Do you know? Movement Three Stooges time again. You remember Doc Doom said he got that little circuit out of a video phone at Barrow, reminded her. Yes, I remember. Well, apparently that phone was already activated and had a number assigned to it, said Barrow in some exasperation. We were listening to Captain America hoot and holler on the laptop in the van, and I was about to order the group to move in anyway, when all of a sudden the damned phone in the laptop rings twice, which must have been the beep you heard on your chip, and then it gets call forwarded to the computer speaker. It was a telemarketer for a new drug to enhance my male organ, as he put it. You're lucky you're a general now, sir, or she'd have all kinds of fun with that one, said Cody. Both of you did a fine job, said Barrow seriously. I can see now why Bobby Bells thinks the world of you. Well, on the upside, I think we can safely say that school days are over for the both of you, said Joe Dortmunder. At this point, it's pretty clear that both of you are now so compromised that it wouldn't be a good idea to put you on any more cloak and dagger stuff. There are simply too many people now who know you're with the NVA. As much as I'd hate to leave a company, sir, I'm not known in other parts of the homeland and I can still work for 3sec in Portland or Spokane or someplace, pointed out Nightshade. Cody was pleased to hear a note of genuine regret in her voice. You could, agreed Barrow, but, and I hope you won't take offense at this, comrade, I have to admit that I have some qualms about that. I always worried about you. My God, you're what? Only 17. 17 next month, sir, she said. 16 years old. Great. We've gotten you beaten up and kidnapped and endangered enough, Emily. The nature of the struggle is changing now, and we can afford to start being a little bit less cruelly expedient, I think. Cody, we still have one thing we'd like to take care of regarding our summer school class. The Mitchell-Newman. Sounds like a rock group. Give it to Bells, said Barrow. Don't worry, guys, we still need your talents. You're a couple of sharp kids, and I'm going to need every brain cell I can get on my side down there at that circus of a peace conference. Plus, we can use a little more diversity on our team, pardon the expression. I want to take at least 5 or 6 female comrades to show the public that the Republic isn't going to be a boys-only club. I'll clear it with 3rd section so that Comrade Nightshade goes to Longview with us. Make sure you take your duck-billed platypus costume, Cody told her. You can do your song and dance on worldwide TV.